Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about last night's episode of Big Brother, Celebrity Big Brother. And then we're going to go into the live feed spoilers. So if you don't want to know what's going on until after the show on Wednesday night, I would suggest you come back and watch later after the show. Because we are going to get into one HOH, who the noms were, and what's been going on last night and today on the live feeds. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps my channel grow, and I appreciate all the love and support. I don't believe that I've ever seen them do everything that they did last night in a 1-hour episode. They did cut the feeds fairly early yesterday morning, so they had all day to get it done, but that was still a lot for them to pick the veto players, play the veto, make the decision, and live vote. They normally do it when it's a double eviction, but that's really the only time I've seen them do it before. So it was rather interesting to see how that played out. We know Shannon won the power of veto. She chose not to use it. Nominations stayed the same. Mariah went out on a vote 7-0. Now, for the rant. I was so disappointed because Chris Kirkpatrick on the live feeds had us all amped up that if him or Shannon won the power of veto, they were going to pull one of them off the block and they were going to backdoor TODDRICK. So we thought this is going to make for some great TV, a good blindside, which is not really something we've seen over the last few years in Big Brother. If you're watching the live feeds and then you watch the episodes, there's not really been any real blindsides to mention. So we thought we're going to get some good TV out of this. Well, we were wrong because Chris Kirkpatrick was stout. He chose the safe road, which was to get out Mariah, which is what his original plan was. But I think by even putting it out there that he was going to put TODDRICK up is going to be bad for his game because it's going to come out. So now on to the live feeds. Last night, the live feeds did not even come back on until 3:30 in the morning, Central Time. And we didn't have them that long. We had them long enough to realize that the next HOH, or the current HOH, is Misha. Who would have figured? When the feeds cut back on, it's Chris Kirkpatrick and Carson in the kitchen. And Chris says, is it just me, or does it seem like Misha's had a household forever? And Carson said, yes, before I was born, before the dawn of time, she's been in the HOH room. So it was nothing unexpected to see her get HOH. I believe she's going to get HOH every time she's eligible to play for it. Unless there's a situation where TODDRICK could get HOH and she may throw it to him. But I don't see her letting HOH go. If she can compete, she's going to win it. I have never seen an episode or a season of Big Brother where they've got such a mix-up, mash-up of athleticism. You usually have, I'll say probably half the house, maybe, that's got some athleticism to them. But Misha is far and beyond more of an athlete than anyone in that house. Lamar is an athlete, don't get me wrong, he's an NBA star, got that, love it. But he's body size, he's tall, he's big, which makes some of the competitions hard. I think Misha's going to be able to win whatever competition she plays in. We'll see what she does in the mental comps, but I'm pretty sure she's going to win every HOH that's thrown her way, which makes for a very boring season because it's predictable. They're going to pick everybody off. They're going to start with Carson and Cynthia and Shannon and Chris Kattan, and I don't know if they'll go Lamar and Todd or Todd and Lamar. I think it's going to be a very predictable season if they do not get her out of there. So that's all that happened last night, really. The feeds weren't on for very long before they all went to bed, myself included. And so I got up this morning and backtracked and made sure I didn't miss anything. And this morning they got up and started getting around. And there was a conversation in the kitchen between Chris Kirkpatrick and Todd. Chris was cleaning, and he was like, man, do these people think they're living in a hotel? He's like, if my wife saw this house, if it was our house, she would have my head on a platter. He's like, they have to realize that everybody has to do their part. We have ants, nobody's coming in to clean, whatever. And Todd's telling him, oh, chill out, relax, it's not that big a deal. And he says, it's just like dealing with your kid. When you tell your kid to do something and they don't, what are you going to do? And Chris said, I'm going to make them. And Todd said, man, you can't make your grown kid. You just wait till your kid gets grown. You can't make them do something they don't want to do. And Chris said, well, that's a different style of parenting because I can promise you I can. So they're going back and forth for quite a while Chris is cleaning. And they're having some disagreements about where to put stuff. And Todd's telling, he gets up and kind of starts mocking Chris. Well, here, I'll put this in here. And here, I'll put this. Look, I'm going to put this here. And he's almost more or less mocking Chris because Chris is wanting to clean and get the house cleaned up. So while Chris is cleaning, TODDRICK gets up, or comes out of the DR. I think he was already up. He comes out of the DR, and Todd and him are sitting at the table, and he's playing spades, and Todd's sitting there while Chris is cleaning. Cynthia done got up. She's in the bathroom. She's cleaning. And TODDRICK and Todd are just watching them clean and not even trying to help. Which is getting on Chris's nerves because he's like, everybody should chip in. If everybody would chip in, we could get it done, get it over with. He's irritated. He's very OCD, and he's very irritated, very grumpy this morning. Probably from no sleep yesterday, because honestly, they were going at it from about 10 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 the next morning. It's when the feeds came back on, and they were done, and they could actually eat. They had ordered pizza. So they had a long day. Lamar gets up at one point, and he's complaining something about somebody better come up with his vape that he let somebody borrow and it disappeared. And TODDRICK is telling him, dude, that's not very smart right now, especially with everything that's going on, for you to be putting your mouth on the same thing somebody else putting their mouth on. And then we heard no more about that. So I have no idea what was going on with that. Last night, Misha allowed Chris Kattan to sleep in the HOH room. Everybody is really worried about him. He wants to go home. Even on the live episode, he said, evict me, Mariah deserves to be here, send me home. And they wouldn't do it. He's not getting any sleep. And I think he's got some other health issues going on. I heard some other house guests today talking about it, that they didn't think that they would let someone come in that was ill. So it was like he may have some other stuff going on. He needs his rest. He's been sleeping in the same room with Todd. Todd snores like a freight train. When I tell you, I have to turn the volume down on the computer when it shows his room at night because it is bad. So Chris hasn't been getting any sleep because he's been in that room. So last night, Misha did let him have the HOH room so he could go up and get a good night's sleep. And when he woke up this morning, he was feeling much better, looked much better. Still not being very sociable. He doesn't want to be there. He's seen at one point asking Misha if she has any idea who she's putting up. And she kind of jokingly looks at him and says, I don't know, can I trust you? And Chris's answer was, I don't know, can you? And she's like, well, then I might just keep it to myself. She said, but I can tell you you're not going on the block. That was kind of disheartening because I think they had all made a pact that after Mariah went to let Chris go home because he wants to go home. I'm surprised he hasn't self-evicted. He may not know that that's a thing, that he can even do that, but he does want to go home. So the house guests were kind of confused that he didn't go up on the block. Another conversation started out with Misha and TODDRICK in the HOH room, and TODDRICK is mad as hell at Chris Kirkpatrick. I don't know if he's heard something, because it didn't show anything on the live feeds that he'd heard anything. But he's talking about how Chris doesn't respect him, and that if he can get a hold of his PR manager, he's going to have him block him on Instagram before he gets out, because he doesn't care if he ever sees his face again, and all of this. So I don't know. TODDRICK, to me, is an emotional player. His targets shift by the hour. You know, it was all about Carson. Carson has to go, Carson has to go, Carson has to go. Now he's talking about Chris Kirkpatrick has to go. Don't know where that came from. So while they're talking, TODDRICK says that Chris is his #1 target. And Misha says, wait a minute, I thought Carson was your #1 target. Oh, well, he is too. And she said, okay, how does that work? I'm confused. And he tells her, well, that, you know, Carson's going to go out first and then Chris. And she's trying to have TODDRICK make a deal with Carson so that they can get Carson on their side. And he's all up in the air. He's not doing that. He would never work with Carson, da-da-da. Before the end of the conversation, it's, oh, well, that sounds like a good idea. You know, he's just so up Misha's butt. But he knows she's his saving grace. Because as long as she's winning, he ain't going home. So, I guess that's a good gameplay. I don't know. It's irritating to watch on the live feeds, to be honest. Because it almost comes across as fake. It's so much compliment. And then you see him talk bad about Cynthia and Carson. And then you see him go up to them. And it's that same fakeness when he's over-complimenting someone. It just comes across as fake to me. I would have my antennas up if I were in the house. And now for the noms. No surprise at all. Cynthia and Carson are on the block. We knew it was coming. As soon as Misha got it, or if TODDRICK got HOH, we knew that they were the next two to go up on the block. And it happens that they are. So no surprise there. Shannon and Carson are talking in the bedroom, and Carson says, well, you know, having her up in the HOH room for 10 days, that's something we can't recover from. So evidently, at the beginning of the game, she won HOH and was in that room for 10 days. So she was HOH for 10 days. And I could see where that would put everyone else at a disadvantage, because she had 10 days of everyone coming to her, talking to her, figuring out what she's going to do, and all of this. A couple of blow-ups in the house, whatever, but Misha was in the HOH room the whole time. So that's a long amount of time for someone to be HOH. Misha, Chris Kirkpatrick, and TODDRICK are in the workout room working out. And the feeds are cutting in and out. And when they come on, Misha is saying, well, I didn't think that they would let somebody come in their Big Brother house that was sick. That's just not something that I ever expected. And then she starts talking about somebody relapsing, that as soon as they get out of the house that they're going to relapse because they're already looking for it. And Toddrick says, I don't think that we should be talking about that on the live feeds because that's kind of personal. And Misha's response is, well, they let them in here, so evidently they don't mind. You know, they're talking about it openly in here, so evidently they don't mind. I've not heard anything about drugs or alcohol or anything else. I've heard a lot of them saying, you know, they'd like a beer or they want some wine or, you know, whatever. But I've never heard anything that would lead me to believe that someone in there has a drug or alcohol problem and that they're relapsing when they get out. The feeds immediately cut after that. So, of course, we don't know who they were talking about, what they were talking about. And Toddrick, he is so concerned about his image. And he thinks that because Misha put up Carson and Cynthia, which is what he wanted, that he has just as much blood on his hands as she does. And that even more so, that they're looking at him more like it's his fault that they're on the block. Nobody's ever said that. It's like he's playing the victim after he's targeting someone. And that's game. If you want to target someone, but suck it up and own it, and don't be like, oh, poor me, well, you had to put somebody up and I have blood on my hands now. That's not how this game works, and everybody knows it. It's just, he is exhausting. He really is. And if he's working this hard right now, when he's not even been in jeopardy of going on the block, I can't imagine what he's going to be like if he ever has to go on the block. It's going to be exhausting. We shall see. If that happens, it may not happen. He may make it to the end. Because it seems like everybody in there has blind loyalty to him for one reason or another. I don't know. Cynthia does. Carson does. I don't know why, but they do. So we'll see where that leads. So the next conversation is between Toddrick and Misha. And they're talking about Shannon. And Misha's talking about how she can't stand Shannon. That she doesn't like the way she carries herself in the house and the way that she walks around. And how she would like to say more, but since the live feeds were on, she wouldn't do that. That she just didn't like her. It wasn't her kind of person to hang out with. And that she'd never be friends with her outside the house. And she said the one thing that drives me crazy is the way she says like all the time. Like. Everything's like this and like that and like. And that just irritates Misha. Which in turn, Toddrick spends the next 5 minutes talking and every other word he said was like. Which I thought was kind of ironic and funny. But they were just going back and forth and bashing Shanna, basically. They don't like her style. They don't trust her. Toddrick says that when he gets out, that if he sees that she's talking bad about him or whatever, he's going to feel like a fool because he's been her biggest champion, even bigger than Chris Kirkpatrick. And so they spend probably 20 minutes in there just bashing Shannon, talking about Shannon and how awful she is. But she's just playing the game just like they are. You know, Toddrick's talked about, let's see, his targets have consisted of Chris Kattan, Mariah, Carson, Cynthia, Shannon, Chris Kirkpatrick. The only one he hasn't talked about targeting is Misha, Todd, and Lamar. That's it, out of the whole house. Everybody else in that house he's talked about targeting. So he can't really feel butthurt if someone is reciprocating that. And then we have a conversation between Carson, Shanna, and Cynthia. Carson tells them that if he wins the POV, that he's not using it on himself, that he's using it on Cynthia. And they're like, what? Why? And Cynthia's like, no, why would you do that? You save yourself. And he's like, no, because my days here are numbered anyway, and I'm always going to be a target. He said, but if I go home, you can work with Shanna, and you can get those two out there, and then y'all have the majority. So he's talking about Todd and Lamar, because he knows that Chris and Toddrick have a blind loyalty to Misha. Lamar is starting to come around. He's starting to see it. He's starting to, he's like, we got to get her out, because if we don't get her out, nobody's going to have a chance. Talking about Misha. So Lamar is starting to come around. It's probably going to take Todd a little bit longer, because Todd and Chris Kirkpatrick and Toddrick just think Misha's the greatest thing on earth. So we'll see. Todd thinks he's got a final two. Toddrick surely has a final two with her. And so that's what Carson's explaining to them, that he needs to just go home and take one for the team, and then let Cynthia stay there longer, and that Cynthia and Shannon can team up with Lamar and Todd and Chris Kirkpatrick and turn on and flip the house that way. Cynthia's continually saying, no, you need to save yourself. You don't need to save me. And he said, well, we'll just revisit this after the veto competition. We'll talk about it again later. If he does that, I think that's going to be probably a first. But I mean, none of these celebrities really need this money. Most of them have money, and I know Carson does. So he doesn't really need it. He said if he won, he was going to donate it to charity anyway. So I think that he's just stepping out because Cynthia is that good a friend to him. He wants her to go further in the game. But I will talk to you guys tomorrow. As always, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next time. Much love.